Okay, quote unquote, an excellent connection. We're gonna see. you know, I do believe that we are off to the races,
Okay.
and this is the return of the one and only Nick Hach, my brother. It's been 170 some episodes actually. I couldn't count last time. So welcome back, brother. You were
Thank you.
missed.
Thanks for having me.
I think the last episode you were on is the infamous "You Drunk My Battleship," where you got me so shitty drunk that I wrote Jane and Jack.
I think we did one in between those, though, I thought.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to go scrubbing. That would make sense. You're right. There was
Yeah.
one particular one. Yeah, it's not going to be a smooth episode, you do so. Oh, well. I'm having some technical issues, everybody, so deal with it. I apologize. Well, my opening question for you, Nick, was going to be in the, 6 years since we've known each other, 7 years since we've known each other, I've watched you take on a lot of different musical dimensions, and I want to know which one of them would have an impact on your drumming. Would it be playing bass, sound engineering, singing, guitar? Which one of those kind of affected your main instrument the most?
Singing.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And is that just because of, like, physicality involved in it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say that. Learning how to use, like, a fifth limb, right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Sorry, fifth limb.
And has singing lead done that more, or has it been all the background vocals where, like...
The lead is harder for me, it was harder. Well, I don't know. Harmonies makes me have to think harmonically at the drum set, which I didn't have to before.
Yeah.
I could, like, know the bar in a song by being aware of the harmony of the song. But actually singing, actually putting the pitches from my face out there while I'm playing drums, that's like just requires a little more intensive thought.
For sure. Having that recall in that moment to go from not doing anything necessarily like required by the key in the melody, like obviously you're doing melodic things on the kit, but to jump in and just stab out a note and get out of there is a skill set.
Yeah. But then singing lead for me is rhythmically more challenging while I'm playing, especially if you're trying to, like, back phrase a little bit and stuff, like, which I now, like, I hear especially if it's a cover, like, I hear like the back phrase that happens on the record and I want to match it, but then my hands are like, no, dude, it's dragging. Can't do that, you know?
Yeah, it's hard to put that little bit of slack on it if you're literally the timekeeper of what's going on in there. I think one of the most interesting things, like, especially if we record a show and I come back and I'm going to look at it, hearing the way that people fix the contour of their voice to blend in with a certain singer versus others. Like, if I solo, you sing with me, or you getting my mumble to try to make it right. And I'm like, this dude's going to the movies, but I guess I mumbled that much. It sucks.
Or I didn't know the words.
Dude, Uptown Teenage Daughter? Come on, John. Dude, that's way too relevant to the podcast I've been listening to. That's just wrong, bro. That shit was so funny. In the last couple of years, you kind of had, like, our band of the requirement of singing, but you've started to do that more in groups, correct?
I'll like, yeah, it depends on the gig, but I always offer, usually.
For sure.
Not on a typical wedding gig with, like, Blue Water. If someone's like, hey, do you have a mic on those gigs? I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
I just want to play drums and get out of here. Yeah, with other bands, yeah, I've been offering, you know, it's like, hey, I know the words, I'll give me a mic, I'll throw in,
yeah.
You know.
Well, with Root Cellar, you went through, like, some very stringent harmony rehearsals, right?
Yeah, I sang a little bit in that band, like, I don't know, for a handful of months. But it was very, like, every song's gonna have this 4-part or 5-part on it, and we're gonna figure out, like, yeah, we had weekly rehearsals. We were like, we're gonna figure out these parts and we're gonna sing our parts. And but that was at the beginning. And I really started singing with you.
Yeah.
That was hard for me.
Well, and we didn't do any favors for you in the fact like everyone seems to take your harmony. It's just what happens. Yeah. So learning how to bounce between that, like, I'd imagine it's a point of contention. Mine is like, man, I've been working on this, but I know the moment I'm else gonna hear it, snag it, and then I got to go somewhere else. I might as well just not sing it, you know?
Yeah, it's been good though, cause like the guys like John and Jamarco, who have been here longer than I have, they've got their parts that they're used to singing too, so to adjust to me a little bit because I've been like, hey, that's mine, you know. but every once in a while, like, you know, they get a look from me that's like, turn me up in your monitor. You know. John's very apologetic when it happens around. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'll go up.
He ain't going nowhere.
When it happens, I'm in a bad habit of like going through the buses now and being like, who doesn't have me?
That's got a level of petty to it. That's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't like change them.
Yeah.
But I'm looking. I just want to know.
Well, and so has the engineering affected the way that you listen to music? Then I can understand where that doesn't have as much relevance with how you play, but like you've gone from barely touching faders to watching someone's compression on a gig and watching what's going on with it. Like, has it changed the way that you listen to music in your day-to-day life, or just how you interact with your own mix?
I don't think. I wouldn't say it's changed too much about how I listen, except for like I notice things or like I could pick some stuff out. Like, oh, I think I know what they're doing there, but I don't mess around with a lot of recorded mixing. Most of my stuff's live mixing. So it's just different. It's a different game to me. But I'll say this though, I don't. It has affected my play a bit.
And tell me about like where especially.
Balance between cymbals and drums, like consistency on like. Just more thought goes into, not consistency, but more thought goes into like where I'm hitting the snare drum or where I'm hitting a tom, because if you hit in the center of the tom, you're gonna get a different sound, a stronger sound than if you hit close to them. The snare drum stuff, it's like I used to just be strictly rim shots on these gigs because it sounds awesome, and I'm still primarily rim shot guy, but there's just more thought put into like, okay, is this going to be a center of the snare hit, or am I going to smack the rim shot? And then, but the biggest difference has been my right hand. I've lightened up on the cymbals a little bit.
Interesting, and that's just because you have that experience on being on the receiving end and seeing someone's signal to spike, and you got to compress it to hell, and no one likes the sound of cymbals crammed.
Sometimes that, but mainly just like, hey, I want more snare in this mix, but like a lot I could do because the cymbals are just killing everything. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And on a drum bus in a live setting, or do you prefer to move everything kind of individually and just have a hand on it?
Yes and yes. No.
So you don't like DCA and do effects there or anything like that?
I haven't done a bit, no. I've been playing around with some things. I'm not really using drum buses right now for a lot of things. Like if I'm at church, it's just there's not a lot to do much, and I don't want this bus like screwing me up, and then I forget, oh, it's the bus that's screwing me up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. In working with Logic, it makes a lot of sense to do like I have a drum stack here, and then people always do like the parallel compression thing, and I really don't. I figured out how to utilize it, right. I can understand like the mix in your car, mix that you're gonna get on your phone. Like parallel compression is gonna come through more on the phone because it's gonna have a small speaker set to work with. So having something that just rammed to hell, just like no, that snare is here, baby. Yeah. Versus having this wide body thing, like it's hard to live between am I serving the drummer or serving the band in that way, or am I serving the mix purposes later on? Right. And live, you got to worry about like personal reaction to things, like all them worship players, man, that don't want to be compressed. I'm telling you, man.
That's why we don't put it in your ears.
If you could go back and give yourself 3 tips for learning how to mix, what would you start with?
3 tips. I'd say beware of trying to mix with your eyes. The board might tell you something that you think is good, but we're listening. It wasn't good, you know?
Yeah. And does that particularly relate to structure or EQ or compression, or is that just like looking at all the faders and how things are?
All of it, really. I mean, I find myself looking at an EQ and that, like, was it called RTA?
Yeah.
I find myself seeing frequency spike on there, and then I think I need to cut that or need to, like, boost somewhere else. Just visually, I'm like, oh, that doesn't look good, you know, and I want to fix that.
Yeah.
But then I'll do it, and then I'll listen, and I'm like, oh, I like the sound of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird to watch the RTA, especially like, I guess it's more of a physics related thing, but even a voice is going to be in certain ranges. I don't think I hear it necessarily. Mm-hmm. It's present in those things. It's the same way that color correlates with our eyes. I understand that there's green sight, but it's the way it melds with other things that doesn't make you think that there's green clearly there.
Yeah.
So if you go and like high pass to hell or low pass to hell, it's like suddenly you start to lose characteristics that you didn't think were going to be involved in this guy's bass tone or especially drums. Like I watch someone else EQ a kick drum, I'm like, boy, have I been suffocating some kick drums, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's all you're right. It all blends. I notice on a singing microphone or an MC microphone, well, also at church we've got like, speaking microphones, but there's like in a service there's like 6 or 7 people that use these microphones. So I try to like EQ as I go, but you'll see somebody's tone of voice is just like really powerful in a certain frequency range, and so it might freak you out and you're like, I gotta cut that, but then you cut it and you hear this other really annoying sound coming that now has the room to speak because you cut, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, where'd that come from? Now I gotta cut that, and then all of a sudden your EQ is like, oh, the gain down, I guess. Yeah. Because I cut everywhere.
You find yourself talking to someone in normal day life and you wish you could EQ their voice.
Yeah.
Some people are just painful to talk to. Where's my backpack at? Speaking of, I'm getting flavor blast. Touch my mix up for a second here.
Flavor
blasting. All right, so tip 1 is not just like following the cues of the iPad.
Mix with your ears. Mix with your ears, not your eyes. Which I don't know. I've heard other people say that.
For sure. But it's one of those things that, like, we all get certain words of wisdom at points in time where it's not applicable. It's like, I'm not there in understanding what you mean. But it is clear as day, and if I did understand what you mean, boy, would it help.
Yep.
What would be next for you?
Sometimes you just gotta turn the gain down. You're trying all these things and it's not working. You It might just be too hot, but
Dude, super true. I don't think I've ever. But one time you showed me that in like 6 months, I was like, dude, I'm just gonna ram this guy. Like, we're gonna get some makeup game, dog.
I don't fully understand how this all works, but I have found a lot of success with that on these crappy headset mics that I guess they're not crappy. They're supposed to be good headset mics, but I think we use a country and yeah, I'm able to EQ it like a legitimate microphone, like a good I'm able to have a normal EQ on this microphone if I gain like ridiculously low, but crank that makeup gain on a compressor.
Interesting. And I guess because you put everything within that squeeze, like
Yeah, maybe.
makeup game is like, oh, I want to apply the softest to the compressor, but without getting it to the compressor, I'm not gonna have enough to work. More in a studio setting where like it makes a lot of sense there to use live.
Yeah. Well, if I gain it, if I go on the gain and put it where I think it should be, and then try to, I just feel like, and it's the room too, but like those microphones pick up so much of the room that it's just so easy to feedback, have the gain where you'd think the gain should be.
Yeah. As someone that I think guitar players, you get your first pedals and you start to think about signal chain in a pretty clear and concise way. Versus drums, it doesn't really become part of the equation until you get on that mixing side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you've always had a good understanding of signal path because you kind of have more of a mind, you're good at the engineering, or was it a bigger leap than expected?
It wasn't bigger than it was. Definitely thought it would be to figure it out.
Word.
So wouldn't say I had an understanding of it though.
Yeah.
I didn't.
All like the new, musical developments in your life, like which one has enhanced how much you enjoy doing the thing versus which one is like the most troublesome to be involved in?
Enhanced how much?
It's like, fuck, man, I kind of wish I could play the drums again.
Yeah, I kind of do. I love it all. I love it now. I don't like singing leads so much, but I love hitting harmonies. It makes me feel good. I'm just proud of it. We especially sometimes we're doing a duo thing and I'll like hear something and I've never sang it with you before, but I somehow know the words and or I remember the words, which is kind of rare for me, but like I'll find it, I'll hear it, and it'll comes out and I'm like, that was freaking nice. Oh, I feel so good.
Dude, especially in the duo setting. I think there's something about like the physicality of people and how vibration affects our mind and our being, that when you're putting your everything into making a note and someone else can find the resonance next to it, it's just like there's something therapeutic about it that I don't think enough people come to understand.
Yeah.
In the same way that like a lot of our generation didn't grow up with a piano in the house, so there's a good amount of people that never took music lessons, and it's like you're never gonna appreciate something great until it's something simple.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've all finger painted.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Mona Lisa can still look fucking sweet, okay? And that's why you still got dust on your hands. You know what I mean? Like you should be brought back down to earth by realizing how much goes into this. And I feel like singing is something that we're closer and closer to than like and understanding that, but not enough people have reached for a harmony before and have a click, and it's just like whoa.
Yeah.
And then you take the risk of it. You walk on the tightrope. It's like that's a different level of fulfillment, and especially when we're both in headphone world, it's just like just a smile and just continue.
Yeah.
Like the other day doing one of these nights, and that guy was like, I fucking love the Eagles. Like everyone loves with that. That was
Yeah.
maybe...
Yeah. Yeah, man. The sound stuff, I'll say, like, I really enjoy being on the like being the engineer. But I think no, like being so aware, and even if I'm like, I wouldn't even say I'm a excellent engineer, but just being aware of all that stuff, um, when it's not my job, but on a drum set,
Yeah.
and maybe I have in-ears in, like that's when I start to get giddy, and like I'm just like, oh man, I want to. I just want to insert myself in the situation. I want to you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like real bad. A lot of it. Yeah.
It's a tough thing, but it's not your place.
Yeah.
Like that's so made excellent. And it's such an interesting psychological game to learn how to do that appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, man, I can see this issue right now, and I don't think you're gonna notice. So I'm just gonna fix it. Tell you, like I know some moments where you pull feedback out of somebody's monitor. Happen. Those moments, it's a quiet little like fuck yeah, you feel like the native coming to you like hell yeah, brother.
Yeah. And some people, it's not. There's not one place that happens. Like I feel like it's happened this year, and like we work with a lot of different sound engineers. Yeah, I just
You want to call someone out on the mic? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm trying to avoid doing that. I'm trying to let everybody know there's not one person, it's multiple people.
But there is one person on the bush floor.
No. But, I don't know. Some people, I've done it to where I've thing. I go to that person later and I'm like, hey, I just want you to know I fixed this for you because I want that person. Maybe that person needs the help, and maybe that person's going to be receptive of that.
Yeah.
Or maybe I care about the person's progression.
Yeah.
And then there's other people I'll fix it and not say anything because, like,
Yeah. Well, it can all get so personal. Like, one of the things I appreciate most about our friendship and our relationship is like, there's been times there is no line professional and personal. We're super close friends. We spend a lot of time around each other.
Mm-hmm.
So if I come and ask you a question about this, there's no way of saying it where it doesn't have a tinge of like, this is a bigger issue than just the guitar playing or just this harmony or these things. But if you're willing to go there into uncomfortable territory, knowing that at the end of the day, we're going to step back into a really good phase of this,
Mm-hmm.
but this kind of thing needs to happen. It's
Yeah.
like, those are good moments, but career paths carry that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like most of the career paths you check out at the end of the day. Versus like after the worst gig, I'm going to call you the next day about something totally irrelevant, but it's like, man, we got to talk about something else too. I've always done a good job. If it needs to happen, it's going to happen, and that probably comes from being in managerial roles and other parts of your life, or just knowing the relationship that you and I have. Like, some things have to be said.
Yeah. That's hard. Yeah. I don't like hurting people. Yeah, I like hurting people's feelings. Like, I don't like that. I'm just good at it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's New York Nick, man.
I feel so bad afterwards. You don't understand. I want everybody to know if I've hurt your feelings, I do feel bad about it.
Yeah. I think everyone needs to have their feelings hurt a couple of times. Not a week, maybe a month.
It's good for you, man.
It's real.
Rub some dirt in it.
Yeah, and if we don't encroach on those things, then there are going to be glaring issues that don't get addressed. Which is not how it was to me once, and it'll forever be with me. It's like, I don't want this to be a good band. I want this to be a great band.
Sure. Yeah.
And the line between that is so nuanced and so deep in the minutiae of what we do, that sometimes you're going to need a right idea and the right thing to get the wrong idea. Like, it's just forever kind of mixed in there. And band chemistry is unlike other kind of career path. We
Mhm.
have to be this one thing moving forward. It's probably more similar to that's an O lineman than anything else. It's like it's very bizarre. So we talked the other day about like you getting a hearing test and be like, man, I know I got damage, but I hearing protection for a number of years. Number one, how much of a hearing test do you think you can pass because you refined just the tightest level of like listening to that thing?
Maybe that's what it was the focus. I don't know. I don't understand, like, I don't even look at my results of this hearing. I don't even understand the numbers. But, like, I know the overall result was, like, good. But yeah, I mean, I was intense focus in this room, like,
None of these other people taking a test like that have done interval training.
Right.
Where you sit there and you're like, yeah, that's a minor third for sure. Yeah, that's a perfect fourth. That's gonna be a, that's a different level of brain stimulation that most people subject themselves to on a regular basis.
Yeah, and they said, told us, they were like, it's not gonna tell you when it's done. And so
that's a psychological test.
But I wasn't allowed to like stop or anything until they got me. So like it was psychological. Like there was 5 minutes of dead space at the end of this test, and I thought, I am failing this test so bad.
Dude, like if you've never done a test like this, the best comparison would be like go to the optometrist and there's a doctor sitting there showing you a white screen, be like, read the line.
Yeah.
And you're like, and he goes, read the line. It's like, I don't see anything. It's like, Doc, I think I'm looking at a white sheet. He goes, I can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, right.
If that sheet is white, just stay right here and keep trying to read that.
We'll find out. But here, buddy.
So, do you ever miss the lack of in-ears, or has that over the years become something that like you lean on and enjoy?
I don't miss. There are times where I opt for a wedge. Maybe it's a situation where I don't have the app, or you know what I mean, or like I'm not gonna be able to control it. If I can't control it, I'd rather not have my ears in. I'd rather be hearing the whole room.
Yeah.
And if it's a small room, I don't want to own ears. I want to hear everything.
Yeah.
Because if I get my in-ear mix perfect, that doesn't mean I'm going to play perfect volume. I'm going to play. And then also, like, depends on the wedge that's provided. If there's a good wedge provided that's big enough, I might just say, I don't feel like setting up my rig, so I'm going to go, we just did one, was on it, and he was going to do his ears, and then he asked me if I was doing ears, and I said no, and he goes, I'm not doing ears then. I went, yeah, and he doesn't want to be in his own room.
Totally.
Everybody else is in this room, and he wants to be with and so sometimes I feel like that. Other times it's just a matter of like just trying to feel the situation out. If it's a really small monitor, I probably just want to go ears.
Yeah.
But I've been mixing it up a lot without hurting myself. If I notice it's really loud, then I might set my rig up. Yeah.
Well, you were talking about like one of Jim Hall's gigs where it's like we bring 2 speakers and everybody's got amps and we can all hear everything great.
Yeah.
It's like that's an experience that I do feel like I miss in some ways with a band, and I don't want to do it. I don't want it to be that loud. That's aggressive to me. But in moments where it's like, if you listen to a jazz combo like 3 guys, it's like I don't want to see them with any kind of monitors feeling that.
Yeah.
And especially with like this and whatnot, it's like that. Like I'm in my own fucking box. I'm missing out on what's going on in the room.
Yeah.
But then I also I'm convinced that if it's a trio setting or a big band setting, like between you and there's this much space between you and your headphones, the hair.
Yeah.
And it's like when we're a hair away from the perfect hit versus this hit.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, there's something to be had there. So when everybody's in the box, it's like, well, we're we're flying planes. We're a tight O-line protecting, you know.
It probably helps us, you know, I've heard we've done some gigs even this year where maybe someone in the band wasn't like didn't know a couple songs, or like kind of a newer person working with us, and people us after the game be like, that shit was tight. And I'm like, yeah, maybe the ears in that regard. We're on time.
Yes.
Or we're just that precise, you know?
Yeah, there's a literal proximity thing, and there's a level of focus that happens when everybody's in that box. Dude, Jason was so funny. Jason is the wonderful trombone player of the Recipe, a beloved band member, the guy who writes those charts. So we got to keep him happy, right? And he had headphones, and he's doing the mix thing during the rehearsal. And I'm like, he's going to love this. And watching Spit Valve having a good time. Right?
Did you just empty it on your carpet?
Right on the carpet. It's so wrong, dude.
To all you horn players out there, I know you got to do what you got to do. Bring a
bag.
Bring a bucket or a carpet square or something.
Dude, bring a bucket for that wet ass
Bring
trombone.
a bucket and a mop.
But I was like, oh man, he's gonna love this. Comfortable cans on. This is gonna be great. And he's like, yeah, dude, I did it. And I'm like, why? I'm convinced that, okay, maybe on a trumpet, the omniture thing, like the amount. For a trombone, I feel like, okay, if the bell's out here and you're back here, your perception of your instrument is this far away.
Yeah.
So it's always a little flatter and less abrasive than if we put a mic in here and we put it right in your eardrum. It's like, that is not the version of that horn that you always hear.
It takes some getting used to, though. Like, I agree with what you're saying, totally. So it's probably harder to get used to.
Yeah.
But, like, you just got to get used to it.
Yeah.
Just got to do it. Even on drums, for us, like, years was a process of, like, okay, I'm going to do, you know, to where you even do some good things for yourself, like with one ear out, which I still do occasionally if I don't feel like I can get my mix right.
Yeah.
Or if I just need to hear the room a little better. It's not good for you. It's a journey of just getting used to it, and it's, you know, you got to take the time to develop that with your in-ears and your,
Yeah, when I feel like with learning the board, like I watch Chris occasionally has some issues with it. It might be best to make him sit there and try to mix and get to know that thing a little bit better, because certain things come across so much more clear. Like, I think the number one problem I always have in my in-ears is if I don't put the pack on, flatten, dime it, and start to roll up from there, then I'm going to end up pushing that gain on the back a little bit to a place that's too loud, and I'll walk out ringing. There's no reason to. I get all the effect of this at a lower volume, what I'm here for. Or if I have one out, or like if I'm sweating like I do, if I don't get that guy flush again, I miss out on like everything below 80. Whereas if I get that thing tight, oh, there's a whole new world. It's mainly you and Kane. I'm like, this is fat as fucking. And if we're standing on a stage that has subs underneath and that's going on right, there's nothing better than that feeling of isolation and just rock. Like, especially in like the tin roof settings or like loud bumping rooms. It's like, I need to worry about that chaos.
We just did Melwood.
Yeah.
Is it? That was like, I could feel, and the subs were way in front of us, but I could feel them. And I was like, yeah. It just, I literally, I didn't even play with my monitor mix. I did eventually. We started that sound check, and I had it was off.
No, you were watching the Bengals game.
Oh, that's the Bengals game. Oh, that was a sad day. It was emotional roller coaster. But I didn't need to mess for a while. Like there was just something. I had enough low end just in my body, you know, and I'm like, oh, this mix is great. Oh, I didn't even touch it. This is sweet.
And when we can afford to, like, I like having a bass cab on stage.
Yeah.
I like feeling like the weight of the is still alive and well up there. Like, I've even thought about bringing my amp out a little bit more again. It's like, I prefer the sound of those things, but I still want to be able to pick what's best for me without affecting other people.
Yeah.
rather than like every time you're standing in front of your wedge doing this, someone else's mix is actively getting fucked.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And then the amp thing. So with guitar players, I don't understand different kinds of amps. I know that like I've heard that like two amps you just have to play them loud to get the sound you want.
If you want the full effect of the tube, you want that thing hot. It's like running a stove. It's like how fast am I gonna cook this thing to a sweet place? And it's like it's better on 9, but that's not the world we live in. You know?
Yeah, I mean you have to look at the situation, and I feel like everybody should be able to bring amps.
Yeah.
If that's what they want, if that's the sound they want, but then you have to be like, with your amp.
You have to be considerate.
Murder the mix, you know.
And also understand like what's coming out of your amp is not what they want coming out of the front of the house.
Yeah.
So when your amp is coming out of the front of the house, you are now gauging everything based on that.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like being a drummer and just how many times have you turned around and been like, this drummer's way too damn loud?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not playing with a lot of guys. No. But there's certain like large classic rock touring bands that like first thing they do is get to a venue, take the amps to the back of the stage, dime them up all, and they just fire off into the opposite direction.
Yeah.
So like there's a farmer 6 acres away going like, that's a great sound in, dude. That's he playing a tally? You know, no, like if you're good about this, you get an attenuator. You put an attenuator between your amp head and your speaker, so you can push the head, and then there's like a reduction going on before it hits speaker, so you get all the warmth out of it without being an ape, you know?
Gotcha.
Yeah. Dude, I've had a couple of sound guys recently insulting my tone, which hurts a lot.
Really?
You know? Yeah. The guy at Melville was telling me all about like our tone was too harsh, and like I am not a good judge of those things, so I absolutely spent like 3 hours trying to work on that. And
That's so subjective, though.
Super. But I think he was telling like not many people besides guitar players would tell you that out of malice. You know, it's like he's not trying to hurt my feelings. He's trying to tell me like in terms of what I want someone to hand me, I wish I had more. The last couple of years, I've been trying to move from the acoustic guitar player mentality of I hit all 6 of these things every time I hit something. It's like, no, bass is doing most of that work. Drums are doing most of that work. I give it a low chink chink, you know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to thin it out, but I don't want the oomph of my guitar tone, especially on a solo, where it's like, okay, if we move this guy to the lose that weight.
Right.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah, it's a delicate situation there, you know, and I appreciate the fact that he'd been drinking. I don't give a fuck about saying something to me like that. And I was going to be hurt by it, you know. If I'd been drinking, I'd be hurt by it, but thankfully.
Gotta hurt feelings sometimes, I guess.
Exactly. You got to do the thing, man. I've walked myself into a bad place, and now I'm a little more interested than I used to be.
Ooh.
I just got this dude, and now I want to program.
Are those for your lightsabers?
Yeah, dude. I just got those. I spent all the money I made last week on those. Don't tell my wife. I was like, I want to have a lighting rig that I feel like people, if they're paying extra for lights, I want to bring something that's meaningful, but also saying that on the road, you know, if it's just a trio, setting up for those and having a show that runs with that would be a great emphasis on. We're on the stage, you know, like what do they bring?
Yeah.
But they do kind of just look like lightsabers. I kind of want them to.
I wanted to. Are they like? I didn't touch them. Are they like just?
It's like a
fluorescent.
Tube,
so like if you hit them, they'll shatter. And
probably
it'll be fun. Yeah.
I went to a friend's baby shower the other day, and it's like a packed college house. They're having this baby shower. And I was like, I don't like crowds like this. I don't want to be in here right now. Let's go outside. There's one other couple. It's like a guy, like his pregnant wife, and to them, it's like, how'd you two meet? And it's like, we're in amateur pro wrestling. And I was like, yeah, yes, I'm so glad I found you. Like, let's talk about everything. Like my love of this goes way too deep. But then I started bringing up stuff that they found gross. And I found out that my face feed is just full of demented pro wrestling. Like, so I'm like, yeah, I saw the other day. Okay, picture like a styrofoam block, like like a 2x2, and someone takes 50 metal forks and puts them face down.
Oh, no.
So you have the spokes of the forks up, and then you power bomb a guy on that. When I saw that, I didn't look at my phone for the next 2 hours. I was like, I can't face the internet right now. It rocked my world so good. And they're like, yeah, we can't really do that kind of stuff in Kentucky. I was like, I didn't know we had boundaries like that.
Yeah, it's like a state law.
But you go to Nevada or Florida and you can do that shit willing. You got 25 people on this roster, multiple characters. There at noon, you leave at midnight, and your body is just tattered, and you're wearing like, skin tight leather clothing. You fight people all day. I was like, man, this sounds like Rock Band, except like more premeditated violence. Like, that's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
I felt related more than I expected to. With that, Nick, do you ever look back on your life and say there's an even weirder rabbit hole that you could have gone down for a career path, and what would it be?
I was almost a Marine.
Dude, at like 18, like...
Yeah, talked to the Marines for a little bit.
Man, that's such an intense way to 18 and relearn the world. Like,
yeah.
You almost can never see the world the way you did. Like, I can't imagine how you go back after that. Once you experience warfare in that young of an age, you don't have a life to look back on that was before. There was being a child, and then being adult is facing like the scariest socioeconomic like realizations of the world with an AR.
Yeah.
When folks go in like later in life, there's your adult life. There's surviving up to the point what you can do with your time, and really see value in that, so you can step in a different way.
Sure.
But I think when it comes to making killers, that's definitely the way to do it.
They're good at it.
Yeah, exactly. They're really, really good at it.
I think, I'm trying to get qualified for force right now, but because I think going into it at 18 and into the Marine Corps would have been good for me in some ways, but also I probably would have died in Afghanistan. I mean,
yeah,
because that was when I was 18. So I mean, they just pulled out a couple years ago. So yeah,
in the craziest way possible. Yeah. The weirdest like military.
Embarrassing. So yeah, I don't.
First, like when I see kids that what's it called when you go to college but you're in the military, and ROTC. ROTC.
Yeah.
I really respect that line because, like, not only do you get the college experience, but your peers are people that are going into the standard civilian workforce. And I think when you jump at 18, like, you're just pulling some vinegar, and they do things like that versus, like, you have a very different understanding of why you have to make that step, who you fight for. It's like, with a wife and children at home, there is a different value of human life, quality of life, future at large than there would be at 18 if it's like, I got nothing to lose except a 98 Accord and a sweet a CD that my grandma gave me that's going to expire in 2039.
Yeah. I think like that's, I mean, they're probably just as far as like grunts go, or just, my thought is that just as far as infantry goes and like fight, in the middle of the fight, it's probably very effective to have an 18-year-old who's, in their physical prime really, or like about to be.
Yeah. In the developmental stage.
Yeah, they might not know what they have to lose yet, or they might just not have much to lose yet, and you can send them, and they'll go fight, and they'll, but not every 18-year-old's like that, I'm sure, but
I can't say that, like, I don't have an incredible amount of respect for anyone at any stage of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's just different to think about. Like, we think about our grandparents' generation, the greatest generation, how they interacted with life when they came back, because these kids were 18 19, some of them 17, pre-enlisting and just like lying about their age, which I didn't know you could do that on government documents. But you get on a plane, you land in Germany, and you find out what's really going on, and I'm pretty sure that my own grandfather walked through concentration camps at the end of the war. Like he was running telephone wire throughout the majority of it.
Yeah.
I could remember very vividly in my grandmother's house was this German Luger that he had picked up off an officer. It was the one thing that he had between him and somebody that was going to take his life. It's like these have surreal level of when you get to an age of like understanding your mortality, and I don't feel like I had that before 23, 24. I barely have it now. I think kids definitely change that. It's like seeing how valuable life is and how difficult it is to take care of some. Like in 4 hours of babysitting last night, I'm like, this is some work, dog.
Was it? Was it a lot of work?
It wasn't a lot of work, but it's just like by the end, it's like it hits
tiring.
It hits you a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And I said to Emma, like, it's always nice when kids leave, because there's a level of taking care of other people versus like taking care of myself is super simple. I know what I'm doing. I go.
Don't gotta think about it too much.
Exactly.
With a kid, it's like, okay, where is he?
Exactly.
At any moment, where is he?
Yeah.
Is he in the house?
He's holding a burning marshmallow, looking at me like, "Can I eat it now?" I'm like, "No. Why would that make sense?"
Right.
And then I'm over here thinking like, "I wonder if we could eat it then."
Yeah.
Like I've seen people do that.
Yeah. That's part of it. For me, it's like I will almost fly off the handle when I get a question like that, and then I got, oh yeah, he doesn't know anything.
Yeah,
he's 4.
He's a blank slate right now.
He literally has not encountered this situation yet.
Yeah. How old was he when he first started being like really in the picture?
Well, we got married in July. Started dating really earlier this year. But I was babysitting Ezra a lot. I'd say he was probably 2.
Mm-hmm.
Known him since she got him, took the foster placement.
Yeah.
But I'd say I was life a lot probably when he.
What's really crazy to me is like when you get a newborn and you have an infant. It's like that first year, as chaotic and as mind melting as it is like it's kind of calm compared to when they're walking, talking, doing their own thing, and you came in the thick of that. It's like there's no warning. It's just like there's this person that has no idea about the things that they're doing, and they're just doing them,
and they're expressing emotions too while they're doing all that.
Yeah.
So I can remember when Ezra was a little less than a year old. We're like at church, service to start, and he's like he grabs something on the table he's supposed to be grabbing, and I watched Nick grab his hands and go no, and then he got pissed. And he's like, he can't talk or nothing. He's mad, and he just grabbed the thing and threw it on the ground real hard, and then yelled at. He got slapped on the hands, and then he's crying. You gotta freaking coddle him, and it's like, what is this?
Yeah, sometimes I see that with my nephews, like a level aggressive of energy that like I remember that as a young kid. I was like nonsensically hitting my bed and wondering like, why do I feel this need to do this? In the first couple of times I saw that, that's when I was like, a children's drum set is what I need to have around to watch them kind of do this. But it doesn't even seem like that. Like sometimes you just want true chaos as a kid. Why? It's just the embrace of that. Like,
yep.
Do you think you could have found the drums any younger than you did? Do you think you found it the perfect time to be like, this is the best release physically while also like structure?
I don't know. there were drums. My cousins had drums to go mess around with, but I didn't have any interest before I was like 10 or 11. Um, Good for me. It was. I don't think. Yeah, I don't know that I was probably chaotic as a child, but like I don't know, maybe a little more tame than others. I don't know. Um, it came at a good time for me because I was in the middle of struggling with finding out I wasn't very good at sports. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I had like I was in 6th grade, 7th grade, and I didn't really. Yeah, I was just like not doing well. The things that I thought I was gonna do well in, or the things that I liked, and so I was at a weird point where I might not have. I don't know that I would have if it hadn't been for music and drums. I don't know what high school has been really rough for me because I didn't really have anything I liked to do that I was super interested in that I had any talent for, you know?
Yeah.
Like the stuff I liked, I was bad at.
Well, an interesting thing to say, going to high school, if you can't find something to kind of wrap your identity into,
It can be tough.
there's a lot of limbo to be living in.
Yep. You slip into, I think it's easier to fall into the tougher crowds just because, yeah, it's a lot of, I don't know. I'm not a child psychologist, but you gravitate towards people like yourself sometimes, and if you don't have a group of people with a thing that you do together that you're good at, then what do?
Yeah.
You do drugs, or you that you probably shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, or just fucking around too, like not feeling like there's goals that you can achieve, to be able to knock it down, whether it's a different beat or learning a song. Like, I think the funniest thing across the board with like a lot of the folks in the band is like this same dedication to the Rush catalog that's at a point in life where it's just like, what is the holy grail of being able to play your instrument? It's like fucking Rush. I know that interest. I can never understand that. But like, talking about now, you talk about having that book where it's like every single Rush song. There's something to chip at there that's not, just causing more chaos or getting drunker than you ever have, or like fuck, just wishing your life away with that aren't meaningful. Like the first time you can play start to finish on some of these songs, like it might be the hardest you've ever done with your time.
Yeah.
And the thing that unlocks in you as a young person, like it's not just identity, aspiration, it's ambition, it's the payoff of a lot of time spent.
Yeah.
Were there any moments were there any songs at that age that meant a lot to you in that way?
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
That's like the worst answer for me personally. I hate when you guys might want to sing.
What's wrong with you? It's such a good song.
It's so memed upon me.
Yeah. Meme. Yeah, we've really done it wrong for you. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. It's all good.
This book, Matt. Okay. It's not all the Rush songs. It's like a drum transcription book for Moving Pictures. Is that the Moving Pictures? Yeah. Fact check. You need Jamie. That's what you need.
No, dude, I'm a one-man operation that barely keeps this ship afloat.
But
Moving Pictures?
I think it's Moving Pictures. The record with Ozzy and Tom Sawyer. But I couldn't
Track 3.
You can't even play it because I didn't have that many drums. And there's like read the music on the staff and it's that symbol, like I'm in high school. I learned how to read drum music. I've never seen these symbols before, and you realize it's just some guy the person who transcribed it just had to make these symbols up.
Well, like reading drums on staff is super weird, right? It's like at the top is symbols, and it's like
it's easy. I mean, it's as weird as trying to learn how to read regular music for the first time.
Gotcha.
You use the staff, but it's not really like specific pitches you're looking at just sounds on the staff. You just have to learn where the sounds are. Cymbals are up top with X's.
Yeah.
Snare drum is in a very specific place. It's concert C, treble C.
Yeah.
And then toms are that. It's logical. Your rack tom's going to be above that snare sound. Your toms are going to be below. Your kick drum's at F, the F space.
Interesting. So when it's going 8 toms across, it's like, oh, we got to go lower than the kick.
Ridiculous. They're going all the way up here and then all the way down here.
What do you call that when you add lines below the staff?
Ledger lines. So there's ledger lines. When you see ledger lines in drum music,
shit's going off the rails.
It's Neil Peart. it's Terry Bozzio.
Yeah.
With his chromatic tune, but actually, I would like, honestly, that's interesting though. If you think about Terry Bozzio's stuff, because his drums are tuned chromatically, you could probably just actually use the pitches for his music. You probably would have to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That I do. We can look that up. I'm sure Terry has some instructional books. How much I feel like there's different types of learners when you get onto that instrument, and for someone to excel to the level that you went, to get a degree in it, to spend that much time, do you remember if it was math or feeling when you initially got there? Like, which side of it did you kind of enjoy as a kid, and which one was more the struggle?
I enjoyed it all, but I learned how to read very quickly. So that's what, but I used that as a tool because I also just would put my headphones on and play along to music all the time.
Yeah.
So I think I enjoy not having to sit in there and read a chart more, and that's always been the case. But it's such a good tool. Like, you don't have to prepare as hard if you have a chart to look at, especially a detailed chart. And if you're just good at reading it, you know what I mean? My sight reading was always good. So sight reading, seeing something for the first time and just playing through it.
Yeah.
My sight reading was always good. So where you didn't work as hard beforehand, if you were a good sight reader, you could just read it. And,
When I feel like that is kind of a crossword puzzle in my mind. It's like I had to figure out how all these things intersect in a moment's notice, and to be able to rationalize and get comfortable with it as we go. Because the moment I give myself a mental conniption, in the second bar, it's like, we're not going to make it to 4. We're not going to make it to 16.
We're already behind.
That DC Al bullet hole that you showed me in there, I don't know what that does.
DC Al Coda. Coda. But it's a good tool because someone said this to me one time. They said there was a really talented guitar player I knew who couldn't really read, but he had great. And then there was another guitar player who really his ear wasn't there yet, but he could read so well. And this guy had, at the time, we're young, 20 years old. This guy had more gigs at the time than this guy. But this guy was learning how to play, learning music so much faster. A couple years, he's probably just going to have a better career. Just because, I don't know. There's something about learning how to read music. You just able to learn more rapidly. Obviously, you can read it, but I think it rewires your brain a little bit. It's like the reason people learn calculus. It's not because you're going to use calculus a lot. It's because rewiring your brain so that you can solve problems faster and things like that.
I was way too high for calculus. None of that shit sat, dude. It was the worst experience. All those college level math classes, I was like, I am too dumb for this. This is not my game. But I think that's so spot on, because one of the things I'm most impressed by with like the group of guys that we play with, and the place I feel like I'm missing out the most on having not like gone through a musical education. Dump material in the kind of way that you
Hump
need
and
to.
dump.
Dude.
I never heard that.
Really?
I like that.
It's a crass way of saying it, but how many times are you going to learn a song and you're never going to play it again? It's like, can I do this quick, or is this forever going to take up like, a couple megabytes of my dome for no fucking, like it's just always going to be there.
Yeah.
And so like the ways I've always like lyric and chord charts and then tabs, and it's like, yes, these can get you certain places, but they're a pain in the ass to make. So how I reel horribly to some extent, like doing that stuff helps me learn so much quicker, and realizing the shortcomings in that helps me rationalize. So if you can learn the rules and the math about it, you can understand when they're breaking, and that stands out. And this is going to be easily quantifiable if you make it like this, like just locking certain things into and knowing like, oh, we're just repeating that part of the form, rather than like, oh, now we're going to do a half bridge, but it's not going to be the same bridge. Dude, there's a lot of times you can fart out here if you don't get into that. And as someone that's just like, I'm a singer-songwriter that's fronting a rock, and I'm learning some material for other things. Like, my job really isn't to learn in that kind of a way typically. Boy, do I wish I had that skill set a little tighter at times.
Sure.
I've learned and appreciate so much more my bandmates by doing that.
Sure. Yeah.
If you could have gone back and did a secondary instrument, you've done
Piano.
Yeah. Just because of how much you need it in college?
They'll teach in college, That's just a requirement of getting a music degree, is you're going to be proficient in piano, so they'll get you there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd just be, well, luckily, because I was a percussionist, I had to learn the keyboard instruments, but not to that, main notes. Yeah. So, you can only play 2 notes at a time. You don't have to think about the harmony in a very intense way. And still probably just reading the music anyway. You don't have to know theory at all.
Yeah.
You're just reading music. But I wish I was a quicker writer now. If I had more practice at piano as a child or just a younger adult, then some of that stuff would just come a little quicker to me, because you can just see it. It's just right. It's all there. It's right there.
And do you find yourself at this stage of the game have a musical idea that's like looking at the game of how can I articulate this that's going to be the fastest, and not have, it's not piano, guitar. It's like.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
If you have a song idea, is that what you really wish you had, that physical capability to sit down at a keyboard and it's here? It's gone from inception to existing. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Just being. I mean, that's the thing too. If being a drummer, it's not like if you hear if you're a guitar player or a good trumpet player, you know what? Anyway, singing has helped. But if you just sing that muscle of taking something from your brain to a melodic instrument, then it's just, you can be faster. If you hear something in your head, you can either sing it right away, or you're not going to see it, right? Like if you sing it, you don't know what note, you might know what you're singing. Yeah. But if you're at your guitar and you're playing it, then you can look at your guitar. Oh, okay, I know what notes I'm playing, and then you write it down or remember it or whatever. Yeah. But piano is, well, guitar's chords too, but piano, it's like, you could put 10 notes out. You could, if you really train that muscle, like some crazy people there, like you hear it and you play 10 notes, a 10-note version of it. Yeah. That's one of those things where I really look at dev as like a bizarre thinker because he's had access to his instrument as he could speak.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you're going to write out a musical idea, unlike guitar on piano, you can chord and play the harmony.
Mm-hmm.
You can play the melody. You can do these things. And, like, it's taken me 20 years to really start to understand, like, the ways that I can inflect a melody or inflect harmony underneath of chords. And I'm not doing it that well just because, like, these cowboy shapes that they're hard to kind of break out of.
Sure.
So I also wish that I'd been given, like, that full access, whether it's a chore or not, so that now I could sit down and really make something of it. But instead, I just keep keyboards set up to pretend like I can do it when I want to, even though I'm too scared when I want to.
Scared.
It's intimidating, man. It really fucks with me.
Really?
Yeah, I think, like, there's ideas I could sit there and I could chop away at and have definitely helps. Cool, I can pad along and I can get these ideas out, but the limitation of being like on guitar, I don't play these 3-note versions of the chords. Everything is going to be suspension. Everything is going to have some kind of like subliminal flavor to it, and so those just don't catch the itch for me. So thinking further ahead than what I'm capable of doing is more infuriating than inspiring.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. There's I'm just curious. You got any books, any methods for piano?
I have one that I used in college. I took like 1 semester of piano lessons. I would have to dig that out.
I mean, we're all busy. You're busy, but if you ever had, like, I got some books for you. If you're looking to set aside some time for it, it's good. There's a book called Jazz Voicings for Non-Pianists. And it's not, I wouldn't be thrown off by the word jazz in it.
Jazz.
It's just like, it just takes you, like, all the different ways you can play any chord on a piano.
Yeah.
And it's very, like, methodical. You start with 2-note voicings, you go to 3-note voicings, you go to 4-note voicings, and it goes through, major, minor, major 7, minor 7, dominant, dominant 7, all the diminished stuff, like, and while you're in it, you realize, it does a lot of 2-5-1s, which is like the most common, like, chordal movement you find is that 4th movement. So, it just, like, as you're going through the book, you find, like, all these secrets of, like, going from that chord to that chord is really just about moving my thumb here. It's just that there's only one note different here. The voicing kind of flips, you know what I mean? So, like, you might have, like, the chord tones might be 1-3-5, 1-3-5, but then if you just move your thumb down, now you've got this crazy inversion, and it's the correct chord, but it's like, you know what I mean? Anyway, you find all the shortcuts that way.
And those type of efficiencies, like, I remember a lot, like, when I was learning guitar as a kid, like, you get and you would circle certain chord tones to try to outline, like, where you're landing. I'm a kid, I'm pretty much running dexterity drills and just getting things underneath.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing how that relates on piano and the way that inversions flip things, like, it's given me a different appreciation of efficiency of everybody's instrument, like, especially watching someone play the drums. Like, when I sit down and I try to play the drums, like, the fact that I haven't done certain paradiddles and gotten my hands used to doing awkward movements, it's like, some things just possible to make happen because you're not in the right space for it. Or, like, the difference between how I would assume you set up is how someone actually set up their drum set. Like, the more not like a Dario Jones, like, whether it's like, I understand why when I watch you setting it up, it's like, that makes no fucking sense. It's like, no, I gotta get this thing on a pimp limp, like 45 degrees, baby. It's just confusing. It's upsetting. But learning certain versions helped me get out of the way of people's playing in a much more efficient way. It's been thrilling. It sucks to feel like I've been on an instrument for 20 years. I still can't name the notes on it. That's okay. just beatboxes, so maybe.
If you, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, does it sound good? Oh yeah, he sounds good. You know.
Yeah, I still we all got to practice more, but I definitely got to practice
We all want
more.
to. If we, I mean, I think it doesn't matter what level of playing you get to. Want to be better, then you should quit. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's deep, dog.
Not really. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, like in this next chapter of life, are you looking forward to not having to play drums as a way of making money? You can play drums as a way of just like excelling at something.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm for it. Or
Yeah.
like make my. I know I'll find time. It's just a matter of discipline.
Yeah.
I hope that when I sit at a drum set, I can get better at being a drummer, or learn something new.
Yeah.
Every time, or maybe I'll find more time to learn guitar or piano or bass or something. But yeah, I don't practice